Thank you for watching part 1. Here is part 2 of the episode. If you still need to watch part 1, it's going to be in the details below. Thank you. I'm just like, wait, what? So there's a lot of misconceptions about it. But speaking of misconceptions, what would you say the biggest one is about adoption?
Well, people would just say, so are you going to change their names? Or my brother said, are you going to tell them they're adopted? He was just being funny. But I think misconception is if you get older children, like we did, I didn't want babies because of my age, that it's going to be really hard. And it wasn't hard. It was hard, but it wasn't impossible. I don't know.
I think we discussed this the other day. One of the biggest misconceptions about adoption is for when they see me and I say, oh, I was adopted by, a Utah, white, Mormon, wealthy family. Oh my gosh, you're so blessed, you're so lucky. It's this whole thing about adoption where it's like if you're adopted, you're automatically you're saved and your life is golden, and it's like this praise to these parents, which there's a lot of great parents. My mom's a great one. There's a lot of great parents who have adopted. Just this idea that I just think it's just like if you're adopted, your life is great, and it's like this white savior complex sometimes that people do have.
The thing that always bugged and still does me is people would always say, oh, you're so wonderful. Oh, you're going to get all these blessings. And I need blessings all along. So, but no, I'm not amazing. I am not. I did
you're
it.
Amazing, but I think
no, I'm not. I'm not. I'm me.
Yeah. It's this. Yeah, it's a.
And it's a blessing to have. Because of these kids, I was able to go back to Ethiopia, have a humanitarian organization for 11 years, totally change not 1 but 5 villages, got to meet their family. First time I went, her whole family was at the airport. I came out and they got down on the ground and they kissed my feet. And that was the most humbling thing I've ever. I'm going, no. I'd never had anybody do that.
They do that out of respect, but
I know they do, but I had never had anyone do that.
That's a different topic because I think that Ethiopia, I think probably Africa in general, they do have this.
They're so respectful.
But the way they treat white people, I do have to say sometimes is like frustrating because the way when my parents would come to Ethiopia, it was like they were amazing and and I'm just like, so it's kind of like on both. It's interesting because it is kind of like on both ends where it's, I don't know, maybe
they just think because you're a white American that
and I think that sometimes that bothers me too because I wish that like for us being Ethiopian, I want you to give that same love and energy to your own people before you're bowing to white people. No,
that's true. No, so, I don't.
I just think
don't want people to bow.
That part is just like always frustrating.
The kissing on both cheeks a few times is wonderful because I could do it back.
With so many children, how did you support our individual identities while also fostering a sense of family unity? I think we discussed that.
Yeah.
Because it was just trying to connect to Ethiopia.
I did have a lot of different personalities, not only you guys, but my other kids and my grandkids and
Before we get on the harder topic, is there any negative experience related to interracial adoption that surprised you?
I knew that we said quite often that we were lucky we adopted you guys while we lived in Heber because we were accepted. And I think if we had been in LA, especially at that time, now you see mixed race couples a lot and biracial children and things like that. But at that time, it was still frowned on. And I don't think that we would have had as good of acceptance someplace else. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I've always felt.
I don't know if this is like relatable to the question exactly, but when I think of it, I think of it's nothing that surprises me in a sense of interracial adoption, but I think sometimes, like, for me specifically, it's like I felt like I was part of this Kennard family, and I had my white friends, my white family, and my Ethiopian siblings and stuff. But sometimes it's like you think you blend in until you're out in public, right? And then that's when you're like, everyone asks you those questions of like, oh, where are you from? You don't belong. And it's like this reminder that maybe that goes to another question, but it's a reminder that you're really not part of the family. Or you see a picture. Back then they did not have flash, so those were terrible.
We had flash, but we didn't know how to take pictures of
not
darker
you,
people.
Just in general, I'm saying.
Well, a lot that I took in the beginning didn't turn out.
But it's like you think you're like, it's not like every day we're like, oh, we're adopted. You kind of just live your life, and then you'll have reminders.
Forget about it, and then you get reminded.
You have reminders, like when you see a picture,
when I'm in Ethiopia,
or when you pick me up from school or something, and it's like, that's your mom, and it's like this. So I think a lot of it comes with like identity issues. Mm-hmm. I think I agree. That goes with so much of it is like identity. So I would say that's the negative experience, is like just the issues that you run into with identity. So did adoption change your relationship with your other children?
No, I think the thing is some of my kids were so much older than you guys that now they'll say things like, I don't even feel like their brother, because they're
more like uncle.
Yeah, I feel like I'm their uncle or their cousin or something. Matthew has stayed close to him, and Jamie. Those were my two youngest.
Well, I would answer it differently. I would say
you say your piece.
I would say that adoption changed the relationship of your children, because I think before we came, you guys were like one family. Mm-hmm. And then when we got there, our father, we'll get into that in a minute, but there was a divide where it was like he had the Ethiopian kids and you had your white kids. And so it was a very black and white. So so I think it did change it, because
and there was resentment, because he was so mean to the other kids. He really was. While they were growing up, he was mean.
So
but these kids he would just take them shopping and taking them to movies and taking them and
showing this to everybody.
Showing them to everybody. It was his ego trip.
Yeah, I think for us it was more, there was, obviously Matthew was like, he grew up with us, so we were close to him, but there was times when we felt like, it's not, the word isn't jealousy, but it was more like, do they want us here? There was a few times we've like had these things of issues, but overall.
Probably did feel that way.
Yeah.
But they honestly have never told me it was.
Because growing, now we're close, but growing up, we didn't have like this close relationship because our dad really divided it. So it was I didn't even see her personality, or she was I would say traditional wife. You just like
June Cleaver.
She cleaned the house, she made food, she sewed, she could make and paint anything. Like her background was interior design, so it's always, everything was kept beautiful, but she wasn't really like, we didn't talk about my day. I
wasn't snuggly.
You really like, you tell us good night over the intercom a lot of times, unless he was out of town, and then you would come and like, but you had a lot of boundary with us. I did. With your kids, you were really close to them. The grandkids, you were so close to them. So I think growing up for me, that was like difficult, because I'm like, I wanted a relationship with a mom, but I didn't necessarily have
Allie too. Allie.
But then it's like my dad came in and really like took over, and he just was like, I'm gonna be everything. So I think that was kind of challenging. So speaking,
well, and he wanted to be everything.
Yeah, and he did a great job of separating and everything. So going into our father, what was your initial...
Who's dead.
Well, we don't have to say that. But,
I do.
this part is the part that gets trickier. So how did you initially respond when you found out that he was sexually abusing us?
I can't remember a lot of it.
Yeah.
But it was horrible. I had been married 44 years at that time. Figured, I'd be married to him forever. I knew he was mean.
Physically abusive too.
Yeah, I do. But, jeez, it like messed with my mind. And if it hadn't been for counselors and Zoloft and lots of praying and it was horrible. It was horrible, and I was so mad at him. I stayed at Jamie's house until he got out of the house. I could never talk to him. I did go visit him once in jail, 1 year to the day. He got...
So the story broke in 2010. We all found out January. He went to jail in March.
January 5th, I found out. 2010.
But I don't even know. This is the hard part where I don't...
You can Google it.
Yeah, I'll post the thing. You guys can Google it and understand what happened. But yeah, we definitely had faced some sexual abuse growing up, and that came out, and that definitely was like a pivot in change in our family, I think, in some good and some bad. So
it was awful.
Yeah. One of the questions was, did the abusive situation lead to any changes in your faith or religious beliefs?
It just drew me closer to Heavenly Father. Without my faith, I couldn't have gone on. Lots of my kids, it has affected and driven them away. And
I think for me, it's not, because I don't ever want to say that I'm not Mormon or part of the LDS church because of my dad, and I don't feel like he can ruin anything like that because he's a person that did some evil things, right?
Well, and he's him.
Yeah,
he did it.
There's religion, and there's people in religions that do terrible things, and that's him. So I think for me, what was very difficult during that time is he was the person I went to with everything, like spiritually and everything. I definitely struggled a lot because I was very close to my father, and
you just had a hard time accepting it.
But yeah, because there was a lot of manipulation and grooming and stuff. So it was there's a lot.
And people would say, "How does she not know?"
Yeah,
that's the worst part, because I don't know how many times I asked myself that. And to look back, I can see hints.
Yeah, well, there was a time that one of our sisters did say things to you, and then you talked to him about it.
I did,
and
yes.
And then you thought that he was there was no privacy, and he was just in our business too much, and you had told him that to give us more privacy, and you thought it stopped, but he would come around and manipulate the story.
Well, when
to make us feel
I
bad,
asked her 2 weeks later if things were better, and she said, "What? Oh yeah, that's fine."
Yeah, he was very good at...
And then after he got arrested, I asked her again, and she said, yeah, he got really mad and told me I didn't know a relationship between a father and a daughter, and don't talk to mom, she doesn't understand, and he got mad at her.
Yeah. I think a lot. So the situation with him was obviously one of the hardest things I personally have ever gone through, but a lot of the questions is, oh my gosh, how did your mom not know? And I think for me, it's because it came out after I was in my 20s, so it was all over the news.
You had moved out
from Utah.
Well, everybody.
Yeah, I had just
none
moved
of you
to
kids
Vegas.
were still home.
Yeah, I had just moved to Vegas, so it was one of those things, I think, that people just don't understand what abuse can do and how it affects you. And I think had he never gone to prison, I probably would have never came out and said anything that had happened.
No, and I've often thought, that if we hadn't found out about it until he was dead, and then we found all the DVDs and things that he made, it would have been horrible because none of us would have been able to heal. This way, it was horrible to have it public, but people came to our aid. And I mean, it blew everybody in the community away, and everybody, people just didn't believe it. And because he was two different people.
I have a few friends to this day that when I talk about him, one of my friends, close friends, gets really frustrated with me because she's like, how do you speak so highly of him when he's done such terrible things to you? And I think for me, it's, if I have to talk about my dad being completely terrible, then it's like my childhood is terrible. And so
he did do some good things. There was good about him,
he's so
but
much
he was so
of my
evil.
adoption story. So it's like if I just say like he's terrible and everything sucks and all these things, then it's like it takes away the good parts, because he made it so that he was in our lives and she was not. And so there's not like a lot of great memories I have with her, because he's
the one that you did
he separated it, and he was the one that like made it. He just was so conniving, he was so very intelligent, he just knew what he was doing, and just
so
really manipulated us to believe
manipulative.
that like what he was doing was right, and if we didn't love him, if we didn't,
then you were wrong, and he had me in the same
So the next question would be, do you believe that you were abused?
Emotionally, I was totally abused. He met me when I met him when I was 14. And he kind of groomed me. I just thought he was the end all, the be all. He was, like she said, very intelligent, and he was so manipulative, and anything I did he didn't like.
But he was great
he'd turn it around, and it was my fault. And I just worshipped him, and I wanted to be what he wanted me to be.
A lot of people had him on a pedestal.
Oh, everybody did. Everybody did.
For my friends that met me after the situation, it's like any of my friends loved my dad. I was a daddy's girl. He was the one that showed up for us and did
and he'd take your friends places too, and
it's a very complicated situation. But so going off what you were saying, I would say that my mom was definitely emotionally abused, and growing up there was a lot that we saw and things that he made us participate in to emotionally abuse her, which is like very disgusting as an adult to think that you have your children be part of that. And so I think what was hard is like what frustrated me about you wasn't, I don't have like this anger of like, oh, you knew or you didn't know or this. I think it's like I wanted you to use your voice and you never did, and that drove me crazy. You just sit there and it's just like you were kind of like a battered woman. You'd never, like, this new character personality that you have since he's been gone is completely different. And I think that's what makes me sad is, I guess the blessing in disguise is once he went to prison is like when you and I started working on our relationship, and having like real conversations.
It is.
I was like, oh, okay, you're funny, you're cute, we can talk, whereas before it was just like my friends would even be like, I don't think your mom like, I'm like, I don't know who she likes. Like, she likes her white kids and that's it. So that's just how it was for us growing up. But I think that like one thing that people don't understand about you is there was a lot that you faced. There was a lot of emotional abuse, and abuse is abuse. It can affect you in so many different ways, And I think that you can't just sit there and beat yourself up for all these things. It's more of realizing that like you're healing too, There's a lot of things that shoulda, coulda, woulda, but that's not where we're at. So we're just gonna... But
it's awful to look back and see all of my mistakes, and I can't blame them all on him.
Yeah.
I wasn't a good mom. I mean, they were fed and cleaned and
You were a good mom to some of your kids.
Taken care of.
Yeah.
But you...
And
I failed.
But I always tell you, I always say it's okay. I would never be like, oh, she was the most amazing mother in this. There's good things that you did for us, but we didn't really you were not motherly to us.
And it could have been so wonderful.
Yeah, it could have. If this knew you, but you didn't know how to be you.
I wasn't allowed to be me.
Yeah, you had so many years of so much manipulation and stuff. It's the same way for me. I would have never told anyone that, the things that happened to me. You just kind of your brain does what it needs to do to protect yourself, and that's one thing that I have learned. So, did the abusive situation impact your perception of adoption or cultural blending?
No, I would just say to know the culture before you get kids.
Yeah, I always say if you're going to adopt a child, you adopt the culture.
You do.
If you can't...
do. Because that was important to us, that you keep your culture.
I think a lot of people
But I didn't know your culture.
I think most people, I guess. Hopefully most people have good intentions behind adopting, but I think for me the mistake I see is they just want a child from China or this or that, and they're not willing to learn the Asian culture, the African culture, whatever it is. And I just feel like identity is huge. It is huge, and it's something that if you can't adopt the culture too, then I just don't think you should adopt.
Even if you get a baby, you need to know their culture so they can be proud of it. Because you're always going to be an Ethiopian. Right. And that's a beautiful culture.
You can take me out of Ethiopia. You can't take Ethiopia out of me. Can you share any specific ways in which your perception of adoption evolved over the years?
Well, I think I just said it, to know the culture. And don't expect all roses. I mean, I knew it'd be hard, but it was really hard to get so many kids all at once. Mm-hmm. It was. And different ages and different personalities.
Lots of personalities. I would say that my perception about adoption evolved the older I got. I think when I was 12, when my mom passed away, my biological mom passed away, I think that...
We should tell them that you guys had been here for maybe 2 or 3 months when Kadis...
I think it was longer, maybe.
Was it because she could speak English? Mm-hmm. When she said one day, she told Lon, my mom's still alive. Mm-hmm. And we're going, what?
So we
had no idea, because we were told she died of pneumonia.
So the adoption agency had told them that, because you have to be orphans to be adopted, so they had said that we were orphans. There's a whole story that will be for a different episode, but so when my dad came to Ethiopia, it was under the assumption that we were orphans. He did not meet, my mom saw him, but he did not meet her because he met my grandma, and we had to do this whole thing of telling a lie of being orphans and stuff. So I think he would tell the story about all of us, oh, they're all orphans, da, da, da. And we're like, we're not orphans. And kid got sick of it one day, and she's like, we have a mom. He's like, no, you don't. And then she, they had to call our family in Ethiopia, and they found out that our mom was alive.
And we were told then that after kids were adopted, she worked in the orphanage, mm-hmm. and she would just throw herself on the floor in prayer and beg God to let her see her children one time before she died.
The whole adoption was corrupt. We were never supposed to be adopted. So and that's not just my story. You'll hear many.
You did get to see her. Yes, because when we took them back after 5 years. Oh my gosh.
So what would you say is the best part of adoption?
Well, I don't know, that you're mine. I just love you and I'm proud of you. I don't know. I like to show your pictures to people. I like to show my family picture to people. I'm just proud of you. I don't know.
What's the hardest?
Your past at home. The failures with me and the disgust with him. And the problems that some of you have now. It's really hard. But you have hard times with your biological kids too. And that's part of life. That's the way the world is nowadays. And
the best part about adoption, there is none. Do not adopt. Just kidding. But I'm kidding a little bit, because adoption is very, very, very intense.
It is not easy.
The best part about adoption is, I think there's a lot of adoption stories that are successful and beautiful, and I like. It's not all bad. So
no, it is not.
I would say in my opinion, the best part about adoption is just that if done right, you do have new opportunity and new experiences. And for those that don't have families initially, they get a family. So I think that part of it can be beautiful. Mm-hmm. And then I think the hardest part is stories like our family, where they adopt kids and abuse them or neglect them. And I think identity issues that we run into, and just that type of upbringing makes it very difficult. So do you have any lessons or insights you gained from our experience as an interracial adoptive family?
Just back again to knowing your culture. The best thing for me was to actually work in Ethiopia and actually meet the people, and it's an amazing place. There's something that happens to your heart when you're there. And everybody, I took hundreds of volunteers with me, and it changed everybody. And everybody would say there's just something. There's a beautiful.
I think I would say back to if you're going to adopt interracial or out of the country, then adopt the culture and like make yourself more aware of that. But how did you eventually move forward and heal as a family after addressing the abuse we all faced?
Well, after I finally got my wits about me, I don't know. How did we? I don't know. I don't think we. I think we're still split, and
I think the situation with our dad really just. First, it made us all.
It brought us all together at first, and then everybody started handling the situation in their own way. You get 12 different personalities. Yeah. And it was horrible. And somebody would say, "Why should you be doing that? Well, why is she?" And I mean, everybody had their own opinion, and it was really hard for me, because I tried to stay out of everybody's opinion, but give them support individually. And it probably made me...
I think during that time, you probably had more of a target on your back. And you were feeling, you were numb during that time. I would say, I think, like you said, there was so many different personalities, and people just not like understanding and respecting and learning to hear from different perspectives. And
it was all over the news, and the little grandkids would get it at school. "Oh, we saw your grandpa on TV last night." Things like that. I mean, it was awful. And when I had my little grandson living with me, and it was so hard for him. And my other grandkids, it was terrible. And we did have good counselors, but counselors can't do it all. When your mind is messed.
No, I think that you have to want to work on yourself, and you have to take that step. And I don't think all my siblings really took the time to actually follow through therapy and stuff like that. That's just I think.
Well, how much a therapist has their own ideas and approaches too.
No, I'm an advocate because therapy saves me.
No, I'm an advocate, but still it can't heal it can help you.
It can help and it can heal, but people have to be willing to want to get the help.
I still go back to where I was sometimes.
There's just ours. I'm sorry that your family's not together. Just kidding.
I'm sorry my family's not together too. It's
but I think the situation
terrible.
with our dad definitely affected our relationship with each other.
Totally.
And maybe one day we'll all be able to be in one room together.
That's what I pray
It's
for.
not as terrible as we're making it sound, but it's not the same.
Pretty bad.
It's not the same, and it is sad. But I don't know if there is any. But are there any moments of resilience or growth that came out of all the challenges that we experienced?
Well, I'm a different person.
You're a whole different person.
I mean, I know I am.
Yeah. I think what we were saying, I think it forced me to, I had to go to therapy for the sentencing and to get help because I was in denial. My brain had blocked everything.
Totally.
And so I just had to like have these.
And then you'd call Allie and say, did this really happen?
I would have like random flashbacks and different things like that. And so I think for me, like I always say, it's a blessing that he got caught and everything came out because it allowed me to talk about all the other trauma that I had faced. It allowed me to actually understand that I was like why I was the way I was as a child because a lot of us had faced abuse prior to being adopted. So there were so many things we acted out on and not realizing why. So I think growing up, I always just thought I was too much. I was crazy. I don't know what's wrong with me. And you don't talk about it. There's no open conversations about abuse or like these types of things. So you grow up thinking that there's something wrong with you. And I think when I started taking therapy, I started to realize, oh, this is why I didn't know these things. This is like, it's what happened to you as a child, and just like learning to forgive yourself as a child and not put so much blame on yourself and stuff. So I think that it forced therapy and the beginning of healing.
That's true. I don't mean to badmouth therapy at all.
Oh, I know.
It was good. I'm just saying for me it didn't heal everything.
Did you go consistently?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
I finally gave up.
You can't give
but
up.
Then I went back a couple times. But
no, my lady was, shout out to you, Melandra. You were great. So as we conclude this beautiful episode,
do you have your Kleenexes? Are you going, that woman is wicked?
No one's saying that. And if you are, then log off. Knowing all that you do now, would you adopt again?
Oh yeah. If I could get the same kids.
Yikes.
But I hope I would do it differently.
Okay.
Whether you want to be God or not, I would get you.
So for me, knowing all that
would you?
Would I wish to be adopted? I get asked that so many times, and it just depends on what day. I think for me, personally, I think I've struggled with identity, and I've struggled to like have a connect. I've struggled with just like wanting a family, and I've had to do so much work to go to Ethiopia, like have a relationship with my family, and just like I don't completely fit in Ethiopia because I'm too Americanized. I don't completely fit in America because like there's this Ethiopian side of me that like people don't know, So I think for me, it just depends what day. I think there's parts of it where like I have moments where I wish, I'm like, who would I be had I not been adopted or gone through certain traumatic situations, because you know what I mean? I wish that I had like a clean slate of just like a regular life, and then I have moments where I'm like, well, maybe this is my story, and there's not that I wish these types of situations on anyone, but if I have to look at it like, okay, maybe there's a reason for it, and it's to help other people.
That is my goal. That's what I hope, is that I can help other people.
What advice would you offer to other parents who may be dealing with abuse within their adoptive families? What's the advice you have with other families that might be dealing with abuse within their families?
Kill their husband before they get arrested. I don't know what.
Shouldn't do that.
Don't be upset if it comes out public, because that we never would have healed. We never would have.
Yeah.
And we had nothing but support. It was amazing. But, I know there are people that still point their fingers. But the support was...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you come from a family that you're being abused, or you have adopted children or whatever your situation in that may be, I think one of the biggest things is like to have conversations with your kids.
Yeah.
And have these type of conversations of like knowing
get
boundaries.
Close to your kids like I did not. If my kids would have felt comfortable coming to me, it would have been different.
Yeah. Like, but having conversations of like really like safe conversations, not being too close that you're doing what my dad did, but having conversations about boundaries, asking your kids like to make sure that to create like a safe space for them to talk to you about certain things, you know. And I think for me, I sometimes wish like, wow, some of us were pretty had struggled a lot like mentally and emotionally growing up, and when I look back I'm like, dang, I did this and you didn't well, you guys got me therapy once, but like you didn't act on it. It was like, oh, she's just acting like this, or she's and I think it's so important that when you see
he didn't want you to have therapy because I'm sure he thought it might come out.
Maybe, I don't know.
And I did talk to him about therapy every once in a while, especially for one of the kids. And no, I talked several times, and he just wouldn't. But now I'm putting the blame on him instead of me.
No, it's not even blaming anyone. I just think if there's other kids or other families and stuff, I think there's little signs to see. And I think when you have a kid, for example, if your kid's an athlete and then one day they just like completely become somebody else, don't just think like, oh, they're teenagers, they're this. Like really dig into it and understand
what's going on.
You have to get to the root of the issues. And I think a lot of times, like had you guys looked at our root of issues, you would have found out things happened to us in Ethiopia, you know. So I think there's a lot. I think finding the root of issues and not just like thinking that children are bad and things, like find out why your child's smoking weed or they're depressed or they're acting in a different way. Like don't be mad at what they're doing. Figure out why, like what's causing this. Like talk to them, have open conversations, like and keep them safe. Like as parents, that's something that we need. So
I know.
But I think that's a good start I'm grateful for you. I think you did quite well. I know this was very uncomfortable for you, but these are
too much.
No, you're fine. I think it's hard our family's so complex, so if they don't know us, it's going to be like, who's this, who's that? So I think I did a good job shortening the stories because I never do.
I didn't.
So, but if you guys, I just want to say thank you so much. This is my first episode and the first time that I'm
and she finally did it.
Yeah, I've been wanting to do this for a long time, but to be honest with you, yesterday I had a little breakdown because all the past just hit me hard. And so that's another thing. You can deal with it, you can go to therapy, but like certain things can trigger you. So it's just important. I think I'm always never wanted to talk about like my emotional issues or depression and stuff, but all that shit is real. So you just got to get ahead of it and learn how to deal with it. You're not the only one. I think I'm here. If there's anyone going through anything, you can talk to me about it. I love listening to people. Anyone has dealt in any situation like her, because she really had a really crappy marriage. I'm very...
That I used to think was great.
Because you were brainwashed just like the rest of us.
I did.
Yeah, when I would explain you, I'm like, this sounds terrible, but I'm like, she doesn't really like have a backbone. I wish she would just like, you know. And I think seeing your relationship with Dad always made me feel like, oh no, I can't be you in a relationship. Like I have to. And sometimes I get so too strong, too defensive because I feel like I'm being belittled or something, you know. But I think a lot. I'm sorry, guys. But right now you're learning, you're growing. We all are. And I think you just have to learn to forgive yourself and not worry about everybody else. And so you have this new character. You're you. No one's dimming your light anymore. So you get to be you and tell your story. And
so let's stop this thing right now.
Thank you guys, and if you have any questions, let us know.
Subscribe
and like.
And like.
Thank you.
Thank you.